Hello, and welcome to On the Couch, Conversations with Brenda Porter. Today's guest is Toni Sterling.
What's up?
So, Toni is a freelance lighting designer from here in Atlanta. She's currently working on a production at True Colors.
Yeah, it's ongoing because quarantine and all. So our design process is delayed. I mean, we're still having meetings and those type of things, but as far as when and what venue, we're still on a small hold. Just
Yeah,
trying to figure
that gives
out.
you lots of time to plan. Your
Yeah.
design is going to be fabulous.
That's what we said. We said, you know what? We just take this opportunity to make sure we go really in depth and see all possibilities and, just have fun with it, since we have the time to have all the fun in the world. So,
Yeah. So, can you tell us what the project is?
that's a great question. I've never been asked that before. I don't know. I don't
Okay, well then we'll just keep it on the down low for a while.
yeah.
Okay, okay. You just finished this last spring your
Mhm.
master's in
Yes.
technical design.
Yeah.
Um, and you're a fabulous, just my opinion, but that's
Mhm.
all that counts, is you are a fabulous lighting designer. And one of the things I love about you is that you're not only a technician, but you are an artist. Um, and you really take a look at the artistry of the script as well as the technical requirements.
Mhm.
And so I want to talk a little bit about your process, but I also want to find out, knowing that about you, what made you decide that you needed to go back, wanted to go back to school?
Wow, very layers to that question. The first one was I've always had a dream that I would be able to take what I do and teach it to inner city schools and really work with the communities I'm used to seeing. Because before I moved to Georgia, I was in New York, and theater was nowhere near my neighborhood. And you know the story. It's the athlete or the singer or the dancer. And then when I realized, well, when I came to Georgia and I took a class, I was like, well, there's people that like those people. There are people that provide the set, the music, and sometimes the music is created at the beginning of the process. It's not always pre-recorded music, and sometimes it's live. So, um, yeah, that was one dream, and then the second part of that was I always felt I was a strong artist, but I didn't think that I was the strongest technician and the technical elements of design. So I really wanted to go to a school to really hone in on the technical elements that I felt I needed to focus on. And I accomplished that. And it's so much nicer, and it just feels so freeing actually to be able to have these artistic thoughts and concepts and ideas and be able to technically execute those things versus having the idea and not have the technical skill to create what's in your mind. So I've gotten to a place where I could actually do that now. And I'm really glad that I went to grad school. I got way more out of it than I thought.
Good.
So, yeah, I had a lot of fun.
And you studied with people that were like have Broadway designers. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's so funny because when I went, I met them at USITT, and I met with the uh, the scenic painter professor, and I met with the costume designer. So the lighting professor wasn't there, and I told him that my goal was to learn the technical elements. And they said, "Oh, Michael Habusky," and I said, "Okay, cool." And then when I get to Connecticut, and then I meet Michael and I meet some of the other teachers, and they're like, "Oh, Michael, oh, he's a tough one. He's a Broadway guy." And I'm like, "Really?" But apparently everyone knew but me. I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, he's a Broadway guy, did this and that and that. He's so great." And working with him, I was like, "Oh, I see it. I see it. He's great. He's really good." Yeah. So that
So
was,
what's the one thing that you think overall it's like this I really learned while I was there?
ooh, this I really learned. Um, Funny enough, I really learned how to truly do natural lighting. I think that was my biggest surprise.
Oh,
Yeah. And my professor, like, he made us do this, Michael made us do these journals, and he would require us to just spend 10-15 minutes outside at different points of the day during different seasons throughout the year. And he said, just sit down. What color is the light around you? Is the light white? Is it gray? Is it blue? What does nighttime look like in a gel color? And I was like, oh, and then so like actually sitting there and seeing how, how the sun interacts with the trees and with the buildings, and what does it look like when you're in the middle of an alleyway but the sun is going in a perpendicular direction? What does that actually look like? And you're like, oh wow. Like, he really, really hones in. I remember specifically, not to rant, but very specifically, there was a play that takes place in one room. The whole play takes place in a room, and he wanted us to. This was based upon a woman who lived in New York, and the play, the script provided the address. So he wanted us to look up the home, what side of the street was it on, where, depending upon what side of the street, where did the sun rise according to that street, where did it set according to that street, was there a street light outside of her house? Because by the time we reached to the end of the play and we're at nighttime, was there a street light shining through those windows? Was it just moonlight? Was it cloudy? And he wanted us to really, really think about
wow.
these things. And I was like, wow, that is so detailed. And so it's like you took more pride into your projects, when you really start to think in that way, not just the artist elements, but like the naturalistic elements in that play. So yeah, I was very surprised about that. So that was the most like, I really, that was my most, haha, okay, grad school, okay. Yeah.
But you don't have, maybe you do, have time to do that on every single play, to go and figure out what side of the street would this be on, and to do all those elements when you're got a play that's got several scenes and it's whatever. So
Yeah.
how do you make that adjustment?
Well, the interesting thing about that, those things like the play I was talking about, that was a 1 week process. Literally, we read the play. He gave us the play on a Monday. We had 1 week to read it, get all the, our initial research in, and then bring it to him. Then he spout a lot of questions. Okay, did you look up her address? Because the address was in the script. Yeah, we looked it up. Okay, was she on the north side or the south side of the street? Because depending upon, your income, you're on the north side or the south side. So if you're on the north side, the sun rises through your window on the north side, and then if you're on the south side, the sun comes in the evening time. And I'm like, huh? Kind of thing. So then he said, go figure all that out and then come back with a design.
So I said that I was going to get back to it.
Mhm.
So talk to me about your process,
My
and,
process.
and yeah, and how do you feel like you differ from other lighting designers, or do you?
I don't know if I necessarily differ um, from other lighting designers as far as the process goes. I feel like I feel like in a design process, we grab on to different things. And that is one thing I noticed about me and other designers. We all may do the same research. We all may find the same historical information. We all may, look up different artists, because that's what I love to do. Like, when in my process, I love to, when after I read the script, not only do a script analysis according to the characters, I do it according to what is required of lighting. And then I look up what was happening during the time period of that the play is taking place. And then I like to do research on the playwright and what they were going through during their lifetime, rather if it's historical events within the city or country, or in their personal life, and see how the playwright and the script connects. Um, and then after that, usually I find something within that I get drawn to, and then I hone in on it. and I do the research on that and try to find more creative things. And usually by then I have these little things that pop up in my head, and I'm like seeing different colors of light, and I'm seeing different imagery. And then I like to, oh, another thing I like to do is look for the artwork that the playwright might have experienced during that time, or I like to look at the artwork during the time of the play, that during the time period the play was written. I mean, not written, but takes place in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a lot of times painters and a lot of paintings and media and digital images, depending upon when it was written, really inspire me as far as color, as far as like mood and tone and stuff like that. And yeah, so that's my process. And like I said, I feel like other lighting designers do the same thing, but they hone in on different things. And I think that's what makes us individuals as lighting designers. And some people have different aesthetics than others, because depending on what you find, you hone in on a different thing.
Now, I love the idea that you want to teach and give back.
Yeah.
I really, really love that. And I want to talk to you some offline about that as well. Um, oh, oh,
Let
oh.
me do it. Let me do it.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that there's a need, particularly in our community, to educate, because as you said, not everybody is an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's an actor, not everybody's a director. And I think that we're at a point in our lives, this season, where it's not a bad idea to begin to foster talents in our community. And
Yeah.
so I'd love to talk to you some about that. But what is your ultimate goal in doing that?
Oh, if I had it all my way,
If the world were yours, and it is.
mine. I think that I would spend a lot of time either trying to find funding in certain schools that I noticed that may lack the arts, and try to see if we could fund them and put the motivated people to go into those schools. And if not a actual academic class, then let it be an elective or an after school thing. I just want to be able to provide funding, because that's the first thing they're going to say: we can't afford to do theater. And technical theater is an expensive thing, and I understand that lights are expensive, building materials is expensive, costumes and fabric are expensive. But I think that with the technology that we have now, we could inspire still, even without physical building materials. We have visual, you have Minecraft. Like, Minecraft is, if you really look at Minecraft, that's a scenic designer. If you look, we have lighting visual side software so that you can do previs. We call it previs. The pre-visuals, we can put rigs in the program, and we can use the lightings, that we can use equipment, different lights to light the scene, and we can do a pre-visual of it inside the graphics. Costume designers, you know how many apps there are, rather if it's Photoshop or collaging, or something to inspire them. So I'm not fully aware of any current costume design specific programs that they have, but I do know, for example, I used to teach at the Boys and Girls Club as a theater teacher. And one thing I would make them do is something simple, start them off simple. I would make them read a small, short play, and then I would make them go on those, those shoemaking websites where, like, for example, Converse. You can go on converse.com and customize your own sneaker. I would say, hey, go on converse.com and customize the sneaker for these characters. What kind of shoes would they wear? Let them do the research. And that's how I kind of did it without the funds. So I think that if we inspire kids to be artists, and we and get into different schools, and have the funding to either pay the people going in, or if the school doesn't pay, or be an after school program, or maybe for I'm not sure how the money part would go, but but that's the goal. The goal is just to get them to understand, like, there's more than acting and singing and directing, and there's a backstage part of it that is just as important in my mind.
One of the things is that people have trouble because they can't connect the art to the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can connect it to, um, if they can connect it to film, because film, there's lots of money in film, and there's lots of jobs in film. If they could connect it that way,
Mm-hmm.
and yet I say that, but at the same time I think about football. Yes, there's money in football, but for most young people who do football or do basketball or do baseball, there's not. It's just, but schools tend to have and find money for those programs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I have nothing against sports. I think sports are great. They get your heart rate going. There's lots and lots of things about sports that are good. You learn about ensemble working together, just as you do in theater.
Yes.
um, but but we have supported sports in a way. I mean, just look at the pandemic. Um, Sports are back. Sports
Mm-hmm.
are back. People are going to the stadium, going and sitting up and watching games. Nobody's coming to theater. Theaters aren't even opened. They're not allowed to be open, for the most part in many places.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's interesting to me, the value or lack of value that we put on the arts. I just went off on a tangent, didn't I? I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, and it's really unfortunate because I feel like sports is an art, and I feel like all arts should be supported, and if I feel like the arts, the only word I could find is blessed. To be honest, the arts blessed me in a way I didn't think I would find beneficial, and it I feel like it made me smarter. It made me emotionally more intelligent. It made me more observant. There were so many skills that I gained by being an artist in this factor, in a theatrical way that I don't think I would have gotten anywhere else. And I feel like those are just as beneficial as, you know, working out and being an athlete and, for providing entertainment in that sector. But, you know,
Yeah, I think that,
um,
and maybe we just feel that way because we are artists, and
yeah,
but I think art allows people to express themselves. Where else except in the arts can you be a little strange? You know,
yeah,
and it's okay, and sometimes it's kind of cool.
yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, yeah, it was definitely for me, it was a getaway. It was the best way to express myself. Like, I might seem articulate now, but I'm not the best with my words. And lighting gave me a way to express myself without having to speak, because exactly how I felt just appeared on the stage, and exactly how, and taking not just only how I felt, how the director felt, how the people on the stage felt, how the playwright felt, how the people that they're, representing felt, and it's just like, we're trying to send you a message here, and we're speaking to you in a different way, and we're having you sit down and take in the message. And it, I feel like it's the most beautiful way to get a message across, and really express how you feel. So, and it's such a collaborative thing. Like I said, it's not just how I feel; it's how the creative team and the acting team, and how the company feels about something, and the message we're trying to bring across. And so I think the expressing is really good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, what advice would you give to young folks that want to go into lighting?
Into lighting. I would say put the art first, and the technical will always come.
Hmm.
Because lighting is, there's two parts to lighting. There is the technical element and the artist element. And I've always felt strong in my artist element, but not so strong in my technical elements. And I let it hold me back a little bit because I felt like I was limited and others were better because they had, for example, they had better equipment, they had more um, up-to-date inventories. You had a theatrical space that wasn't an old library. I my undergrad, I went to West Georgia, but I started at Georgia Perimeter, and they turned the old library into a theater, and we started off with 8 lights and we made it work. you know
Oh, right.
and but I couldn't I and then when I look on Google and look at other artists websites, and they put their plots on there, and there's like 500 lights, and they have all the movers in the world, and I'm just like, it's just me, my 8 you know source fours. So I always say, put the art first and make it, and make that work for you, and the technical elements will always come in. You'll always get to work with you'll work with various rigs, and don't let the size of the theater, and don't let the size of the rig, and don't let your lack of drafting skills, or lack of whatever other technical skill, get in your way. Let the art guide you, because if you're an artist, you're going to get the tools you need. And I'm still, everyone is still getting their tools. I feel like I have a lot more tools now, but there's always more tools as a lighting designer that I could really go get. And but I will always let my art guide me to more tools. Yeah.
Is there a lighting designer that you really admire and respect?
Ooh, a mini. Ooh, I gotta say their name, huh?
No, you don't have to. Yeah, it would be nice, but you don't have to. I was just wondering.
Ooh, oh man, it's kind of
No,
hard.
you don't have to say their name, because if you leave out somebody, somebody's gonna be hurt, right?
That's what I feel. I feel like all the ones is gonna get hurt. Like, how could you not say my name? And or if I, or the opposite, when I say their name and they're call me up like, say, admire me, huh? I'm like, so, yeah. But there's many lighting designers that I really admire. I will say this, that I feel that just being in Connecticut, this is no shade to Connecticut, I promise. But just being in Connecticut and watching the designers there, designers, not lighting designers, but designers in general, watching the designers there and the ones here, and seeing how we have, like, the theaters, how I put it, I feel that just from my experience, my personal experience, I've watched Atlanta designers always approach a show immediately from a very more community-based um, artist mentality. Like, I see design teams communicate very well down here. You know what I mean? Like, not that everyone was separate up there. How do I explain this without sounding crazy? There was just a difference. I can't explain it. Um, you know what it is? I know what it is. I
What is
figured. Wow. So I would say that I felt that a lot of the pieces that I saw up there, a lot of them, not all of them, because I've seen some really beautiful stuff up there, especially at Yale. They had some really great social justice kind of plays, and a lot of like forthcoming and like message in your face kind of great stuff. But a lot of them are commercial based, like yeah, they seem a little bit more commercial based, but I feel like in Atlanta, a lot of the shows are more what is happening in our communities, and let that be what chooses what we do. I mean, obviously, you do a little commercial because we got to make our money somehow, but not everything has to be, commercial, if that makes sense. But I hope I don't get in trouble for that, but that's how I feel,
Yeah.
to be
So
honest.
how does that, something being commercial or something being um, socially forwarding,
Yeah.
how does that affect the design team though?
I'll say it like this. So a couple years ago, Actors Express did Sweeney Todd,
Okay.
and Sweeney Todd was Kevin Harry, a black man. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it was a mixed cast. And that was Atlanta doing theater. And we made it with, we didn't say, oh, well, Sweeney was a white guy, so we have to do it like that. They were like, no, this is our community. We are artists. We're going to make it work and we're going to do Sweeney Todd. What's the problem? And I go to Connecticut. They did Mamma Mia. And I'm not going to say the theater, but they were doing Mamma Mia, and they wanted it to be mixed cast, and so they made it mixed cast. But for some reason, that was like revolutionary, and they were like articles on it, and just like I don't know. I was just like, people do that all the time. You don't. I mean, I don't see what was, but they made it this big thing because like it's commercial and you're supposed to do it the way the script designed it to be, and there were people who were upset about it, and
Really?
I was yeah, and I remember being and talking to my classmates, and they were like, I don't see the big deal. And I was like, yeah, we did Sweeney Todd in Atlanta and it was a black guy. I was like, it doesn't, we don't, it doesn't have to be, it's a character. It wasn't like white man is important to play this role, you know what I mean? And it's just moments like that where I'm like, well, the community has people of color. But I just say that to say, I would say working in Atlanta and doing theater in Atlanta as a designer, I feel that the shows that we choose to do, rather if it's commercial or not, I've just, in my personal experience, it has always had some kind of connection to the community and what our community looked like and what our community, a message our community needs to hear, rather if it's at the forefront of our mind or not.
So, in the community where you were,
Yes.
was there a large black population?
In the closer to the city, yeah.
Okay.
Closer to the city. Where the university was itself, no. But where we worked very close to the city, and a lot of the shows that were done downtown tended to be a little bit more mixed versus when you start spreading out a little bit. But then when you start doing show, like when you start starting to mix cast, when the show is typically an all white cast, then some people were like, nah, I don't think you should force it. I'm like, no one's forcing anything. But it's always a sub conversation, but it was never like out in the papers or anything. It was always just, oh, this designer we were talking to that we know, and they're going through it during at the theaters downtown, and oh, word gets back to the, because like all the designers know each other, so, and then the great thing was that we got to work with them. A lot of times you would have professionals come in, and sometimes they would say, hey, can you send some of your students to come work on these shows in different theaters in Connecticut? Not always downtown, but at different theaters. So we were always intermixed and knowing what's going on in the bigger scheme of theater things.
Yeah, I don't think Atlanta has that. I don't think we have that connection with schools in the way that some of the places up north do. I mean, occasionally there will be, oh, these students from Georgia State or these students from Clark,
Mm-hmm.
but not on a regular basis that I know of.
Yeah.
Not that I know of. Maybe up in Gwinnett, but I don't think so.
I will say that though. Georgia does, as far as I understand and know, yeah. I think that the schools connected to theater, yeah, I don't think Georgia has that.
We don't really have that.
Yeah.
Which, I think in some ways is a little a bad thing because it would allow the students an opportunity to get that professional insight. Because book learning, at least for me, was different than actually getting out here on my own. And
Yeah.
but if I had had that opportunity to intern or be part of or go work with professional companies, then I
Hmm.
think I may have seen things a little differently, and it wouldn't have taken me quite so many years. Maybe not. I don't know. But I think it would be, and the theaters then get an opportunity to train and to have, help.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so tell me, what is your favorite piece you worked on?
Oh,
And I'm sure it's something from Impact Theater, right? Okay, excluding Impact.
excluding impact?
Well,
Oh, I see.
okay,
Oh, that's harder.
besides Impact.
Okay. Oh gosh, it's a really hard question. Okay, can I say two? Can I please say just two?
Yes, you can say two.
Okay. Um, I would say my one of my favorites is we did a show called The Nether at UConn,
Mhm.
and it was student done, so there was no budget. They gave us a $500 stipend just to, be nice, and said, do a show. And it was student driven, no faculty, no staff, just the students working on their own time, outside of class, outside of work, outside of everything. And I would say that was one of my favorites because it brought me back to a place where I didn't have a lot of inventory. I didn't have a lot of access to lights and new technology. And it was my first time thinking, oh no, now that I've had all this fun at the UConn, theater world, am I still going to be able to create something with just a few lights? And yeah, I took the skills I learned, and it was just the uh, the camaraderie between the designers, and we meshed so well. And just with a couple lights and $500, and I mean that 500 was for scenic lighting, sound, and costume, and whatever the director was, whatever else, and props, everything we had to share. And I was able to accomplish the design that I really loved. I think one of my favorite designs ever. With just they gave me 30 lights. I know that sounds like a lot, but it was 30 old Altman's 1970 lights. So I just want to put that out there. I just want to put out that it wasn't like any 90s.
30 is much more than you had with us.
So I was able to accomplish a really beautiful design, and all those tools. This was my first time taking all those tools that I learned for the first 2 years of grad school and being able to put it into a project and be able to see what's in my head come in front of me for the first time in the best way. Um, yeah, it was the first time I was ever able to get out of what's the image in my head onto the stage exactly the way I saw it.
Really?
Um, and yeah, when I turned on the lights, I almost cried because I was like, this is exactly what I saw in my head, and I really like it. And I would say in the past I haven't been able to fully accomplish what I see in my head. I was always content, and I enjoyed what I did, but it wasn't exactly how I saw it in my head. Um, and I'm going to say it, Brenda, because I think it's true. My second favorite, I have to say, The Rooting Place, because it was the first time I worked so closely with all design elements and the director. Like, I've never worked so closely with a group of people before. And because before some of the shows I've done before The Rooting Place, the scenic design was done, and then I showed up, and I had no say in anything. I had no say on the costumes. I had absolutely, not that I would tell the costume designers what she should do, but sometimes the lights don't look good for the costume. But if I work with the set with the costume designer, we can, talk about, hey, what kind of colors are you doing? So I could kind of go with this is the look I'm trying to go for. Does your costume match my light? And be able to say, hey, let's sit down in a light lab, or let me turn on these lights, and can you bring your costume over? And working with Juana hand in hand while she's building and I'm putting up lights at the same time, and I'm like,
Yeah, you
okay,
couldn't
so
keep
you're
that
gonna
up.
put me there, can you give me 2 feet, like, like that was the first time I was ever able to do that. And I took that same mentality to grad school, and it made my process so much easier, because I felt ever since the rooting place, I haven't been afraid to communicate with other designers,
Oh,
about asking for things that I need, or collaborating, in the best efficient way for the show. Yeah.
so what happens when they say no?
What happens when they say no?
I can't
Then
give you.
I have to go back to the drawing board, or a lot of times what I do, like for example, I was working with a costume designer, and she wanted to put this woman in a burgundy dress, but it was like this like dark taverny kind of scene. So the lights were a little bit more amber-ish, which we all know makes it a little bit more browny. And so the dress didn't look good. And I said, okay, do you have anything else maybe? And she's like, no, this is the dress I want her to wear. And I said, I was like, they're in a tavern. And if I put any kind of white light in there, it's not going to really look like a tavern in there. I was like, well, I said, does she have anything like that can accent the dress, or what can we do? So then eventually she's like, no, this is the dress. And then I had to go back. I had to go back to the drawing board and figure out how could I make her dress look good, and, also make it feel like a tavern. And I did it. Sometimes I just got to go do it, make it work. And I made it work. I just, instead of focusing on the color, I focused on the intensity, I guess you could call it. I don't want to. I don't. It's so hard sometimes explaining light, and then you want to use technical terms, but you don't know if the people who are going to watch it is going to, or the people listening
Well,
is going to know yeah. It's like I want to explain it for everyone.
see, that's
you
what
know?
I love about you. You really take the time to, because lighting is the one area that I'm just like, I, I can't even tell you. I can just say yes, I like that, or no, I don't. Which is
Mm-hmm.
another reason why I want to talk to you about teaching, so that you
Mm-hmm.
can teach me some things. But you always have, when I've gone, what? You've always very carefully taken the time to explain to me, which of course in the next week I've forgotten. But during that time, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blame it on the gray hair.
It's
My ability to get that lighting thing.
it's I think, I personally think it's the natural teacher in me, because that is something I've always wanted to do. Take something that, because I'll say like this. For example, um, the first time I went to USITT, and I walked into this room, and there was a whole bunch of new lights and light boards. First of all, I didn't know there was more than 2 different kinds of light boards. There was like 7, and I was like, what? But and then I saw, for example, I saw a light board, and it said um, Grand MA, and I said, the light board is called Grandma. Why would they call the board Grandma? And then I said, hey, do you know about the grandma board? And they laughed me to scorn. And I'm like, I'm just trying to learn. It's Grand MA. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. So I've always like, because of I've had so many moments like that. I've always liked the teacher in me is always like, well, if you don't understand what I'm saying, well, let's talk about it. Let's find a way for you to understand. Because I would like for someone to explain something to me when I don't understand. You know, how could I get better if no one explains? You know, how could I understand if no one sits down with me and takes the time? So, you know, I've always been that kind of person, but you know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Mhm.
So, our time is almost up.
Yes.
Is there something that you are just dying to share that you feel like we have not talked about?
Brenda, can I bring up the thing about, we had a phone call conversation one time about artists of color and what,
Yes, by
can I
all
bring it
means,
up?
bring it up.
Okay. So I had said to you that I don't think necessarily, not, I don't think that 100% the issue with finding people of color who are theatrical artists. I don't think the problem is that there's a lack of education. I think there's a lack of accepting that we are educated. And
Yes.
just want to talk about why I feel that way because I'm not going to say what theaters, but in Atlanta and even when I went to Connecticut, when I walked into a room um, and I tell them I'm a designer, the assumption is, oh, she couldn't have learned everything about being a lighting designer because she maybe, I don't know why, I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or a person of color, that the assumption is, oh, she can't know everything about lighting. She could not come from a place where she learned everything and had the best technology and all the technical blah, blah, blahs. And I think that's an unfair assumption. And I've been told like, oh, this is an opportunity for you. And I'm like, no, no, it's not. I know what all of this is. I've done all of this before, you know, and they just brush me off afterwards. And I think there are many different places different things that could bring out more Black artists and more Black theatrical designers. But when we do all the things to make more of us, they have to be ready to receive us, in my opinion. And I don't think not every department is ready to receive us and pay us for what we're worth, if that makes sense. Um,
So, yes, it does. So if you walk into a theater,
mhm.
um, um, and so if I got you right, you're saying you walk into a theater, you've been hired as a designer, and then as the designer, they're assuming that you don't know anything, even though they've just hired you to design.
Um, in the situations I particularly were in, not that was not what happened. Like what there was one time I was called to be a programmer for a lighting designer, and beforehand I wasn't aware of this until afterwards. The production manager told the lighting designer to not give me complex cues to make because there's no way I would know how to make complex light cues like like special effects and I wouldn't be able to like I don't know what he thought I didn't know how to do on a light board, but he told the lighting designers to only give me simple cues to make because I wouldn't be able to make complex ones.
Did he ask you if you were able to make them? He just made that assumption
He made the assumption.
because you were a woman or because you were a person of color.
And then during we were in a break and we got to the part where he wanted an effect to happen and he wanted he wanted a very complex special effect. And instead of asking me if he can do it, he called a friend during the break and said, hey, could you tell my programmer how to make this lighting effect? And I said, which lighting effect? And he looked at me, he's like, well, I really can't see the scene looking any other way. And I really want this lighting effect. Could you talk to my friend and he'll tell you how to make the effect? I was like, why do you think I can't make the effect? I'm your programmer. And he said, well, I mean, I'm not going to say his name. He said, so and so said that you don't know how to do things like that. Like you wouldn't be able to make like complex cues. And I said, I mean, I've been working with ions for, I don't know, 7 years. I think I know what I'm doing. And I was like, I wouldn't come here as a programmer if I didn't know. He wouldn't have hired me as a programmer if I didn't know. Um, and then I come to find out he didn't, because I've always been my own programmer. This is my first time someone asking me to program for another person.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, I wasn't paid enough and I was taken advantage of in the situation. So it was like a double whammy, like, oh, not only did you not pay me enough, you also um, told the programmer that I wasn't good enough and not to give me complex things. And and then after I was like, no, I can do it. And so when I talked to the person on the phone, obviously, I said, yeah, I do this, and that, and that. Yeah, yeah, I know that. Yeah, then why'd you call me? I'm not sure why he called you, to be honest. I'm on the phone with the guy and he's like, you know what you're doing. And I was like, yeah, I don't know why he thought I couldn't do it. And then that's when the lighting designer came to me. He was on a smoke break and I was outside. He came to me. He's like, I didn't mean to offend you. It was just that, production manager told me that you weren't able to do cues like that. And I'm like, oh, hmm, okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm here. I can do anything you need me to do. So he was like, that's great, because we're going to have to go back through some other cues and add some stuff. And we did. We went back and stuff that he wanted more, complex cues. He went back and we added some stuff in and made macros and all those lovely things. And everything was fine. And then, yeah, it was a good time. And I made a contact that way. So I didn't take any ill from it. I just, kept the lighting designer as a contact. And
Well, that's really insulting,
yeah.
really disturbing. But I think that happens time and time again. And it's also could be that you were young, because I'm assuming it didn't happen this week.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so there's an assumption that people that are young, women,
Mm-hmm.
or people of color
Mm-hmm.
are, and also you were probably paid less because of all three of those things. You
Yeah.
know, she's a young person. Let me pay her a little less. She doesn't need as much. Doesn't have as many years experience, so I don't have to pay her for all those years experience.
Yeah. The only reason why I specifically use that example, because I feel like I'm like that too. I analyze like, oh, maybe because I'm young, maybe because I'm this. The only reason why in that specific story I say that is because he asked another lighting designer who was younger than me. She was white and a woman, and offered her more, and she said no because she felt that she wasn't good enough to do it. She wasn't good enough as a programmer to do it. Because I asked her, I said, hey, you live like, because I lived all the way in Conyers at the time. I lived in Conyers, and the other girl, she lived like right by the theater. And I was like, how come you asked me? How come you didn't just ask her? She actually works for the company. I'm confused. So when I went to her, because I didn't want her to feel like, I took something from her, because that's the kind of person I am. When I went to her, she was like, yeah, he offered me $850, but I don't think I could have did it. Even for $850, I don't think I could have did it. I said, he offered you $850? And she said, yes. And I said, it's fine. It's nothing. So I was like, okay.
So I want to get back to, and just for a second, the idea that if we have, it's not, you said that it's not the problem that we don't have enough people of color that do these particular skills, that are lighting designers, costume designers, set designers, so on and so forth. There's theaters that say that they do not know them, or that they need to be trained and brought up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's trained and brought up to their way of working, because Okay, so as a lighting designer, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you worked for me, with me, um, with a limited number of lighting instruments,
Mm-hmm.
and with a very old board,
Mm-hmm.
and you made things work. Um, let's say you go to another theater that looks at that resume and says, "Oh, you worked for Brenda. I know what kind of equipment she has."
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm asking you to come to this 500, 700 seat theater with much different lighting and much more lighting.
Mm-hmm.
It is probably not a far off guess that they would say, I don't know if she can handle that.
Yeah.
Um, and not because of the color, but because of what they've seen on your resume. So if all of our people are out here and doing great works with a nail and a screw and putting together one piece of board, one nail and one screw and one hammer, and they've put, oops, you have to have a screwdriver too, and they've put together a whole set with that one piece of board. But
Yeah.
then you go and now we have all these tools, and I go, I don't know if they can work it. So of course the question is to ask, but I understand why there is that assumption. Okay, I've just probably lost my black card. um,
I don't think so. I mean, it's a true, it's a real question, and it's a real concern, and um, that's why I had said earlier, hold on to the art part, and the technical stuff will come. If you want to be a good artist, you will get a better skill set. You will get the tools, you will get the practice that you need. Like, for example, I would to that, to that example of going from the one piece of wood to, a 50-foot proscenium or something. I would say you have to be smart about it. I think I never went into a 500, seat theater, or 700-foot seat theater and said, "Hey, I want to be your lighting designer." I've never done that, especially if I've only worked in the old library that turned into a theater. I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to do is say, "Okay, well, I'm an artist, and there's some tools in this building that I need to learn. Let me be a technician. Let me be on the crew. Let me learn the space. Let me be an assistant. Let me be, an assistant, or just the, master electrician, well, maybe not master electrician, because then you're responsible for all things technical. So maybe not that. But, if you go in and you say, "Hey, I want to learn this space," and then you watch how they design in that space, and you say, "Hey, can I sit in on rehearsals? Hey, can I sit in on tech?" Get in contact with the lighting designers, see how they do their process. For me personally, uh, uh, I'm going to name drop, because hopefully, hopefully he doesn't get upset about it. But like, Andre Allen was that person for me, you know, going from the old library to, West Georgia. And then I'm out fresh and new. I was able to get a contact with Andre, and I followed him around to various kinds of theater, and not every space was the same. And I was able to see, the big houses versus the small houses, and how he made it work for both, and so I just picked up tools. I just kept picking up the tools. So then when I want to go work in the 700 seat, then I can say, well, this is just a little bit bigger than what I'm used to. Maybe either just go say I have the tools and go for it and try it out, or you say, "Hey, can I work my way up? Can I be, on the electrician crew?" And then, maybe once you get comfortable and learn the space, you're like, "Oh, I could design in here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could see how a space like this could work." Because, I feel like the technical elements of what it takes to create a light plot is all the same, big or small. It's just a matter of how many lights is in one system, which is just like, we'll talk about that later, what a system is, Brenda, if you want to know.
Thank
But
you.
you know what I mean? Like it doesn't, it shouldn't change big or small, but it can be overwhelming. So, and sometimes with a bigger house, there's a lot more obstacles, like for example, the academy doesn't have a fly system, you
Right.
know. So when you go into a bigger house that has a fly system, then you have to say, okay, how do I do lights with things that move? How do I do lights with things that rotate and spin? How do I, you know what I mean? Like how you just go into those houses and you just get familiar with them, and ask the questions and get the tools you need, because there should be more communications between companies and designers. I do think that is something that would be more beneficial. Like, yeah, like I wish I could have said to some designers, said, "Hey, come look at my work down at Impact."
So we have gone
Have
over our time for,
I'm sure.
I know,
Yeah.
always. So I'm going to sign us out, and then
Edit me out, Brenda. Time is up.
wonderful having you on the couch. I appreciate it. For those of you out there watching this, come back and each week and see our conversations on the couch. Thank you.